Hello, everyone. I am your host, TaSh, and this is Women in Games International Cheat Codes Podcast. Today, we have a true trailblazer in the gaming industry. We have Charmaine Duff. Charmaine is the founder of Women Led Games, an initiative that's shining the spotlight on the incredible work of women developers. Charmaine is also a producer at Pancake Game Studio, where they are the bright visionary that brings a creative vision to life. Also, an angel investor, where Charmaine is empowering the next generation of women game developers. By the way, there is a showcase in December for the Game Awards, and those will close in about 4 days from today, Wednesday. Charmaine, welcome to the podcast. Is there anything you want the audience to know about you or your mission?
Hello, thank you for having me. I am very unstructured and kind of all over the place, and you're gonna probably see my dog and things like that coming. But no, I think you nailed it on the head. We started last year as sort of a response to the Women's Day Steam sale being canceled, and so we created our showcase, and we've had 2 showcases this year so far, one in March celebrating Women's Day, and then one in June underneath the Summer Game Fest umbrella, which was really great. And like you said just a bit ago, we are having our 3rd showcase for the year underneath the Game Awards umbrella. It won't be like at the Game Awards, but like it's going to be during the Game Awards week under being promoted by them as well. So it's really, really amazing how quickly Women Led Games has grown. And I'm very excited, very proud of what we've built so far in just a year. And I'm hoping, our mission has always been to uplift these developers and get them seen so they can get funding. And I'm hoping even with the insane climate of today's industry, that is still possible. So that is our mission. That's what we're doing. And I'm happy to be here and chat with you.
I'm happy you're here. Tell me more about the women's games that was canceled from Steam.
There's a Women's Day Steam sale event that I think the first one was held in 2022. It's called the Wings Steam sale event, and that was ran by Wings. And then they were supposed to continue it. It did really well. They were supposed to continue it again last year, but they had to cancel it. And I can't remember the exact reasons. I think one of the reasons was because it couldn't be featured on Steam. And when you don't really have that featuring on Steam, it's like the events get hidden and it's kind of like, Is it worth it to put the time and effort into this? And from a marketing perspective, because I came into the games industry as a community manager and like doing marketing and things like that for indies, I understand that. But at the same time, especially last year when things were like really, really rough for women in the industry, and there was like a lot of Gamergate 2.0 was starting back up again last year, and it's in full force again this year. I really wanted something, to kind of lift the spirits. And so, my mommy bear instincts, I've got 3 kids. My mommy bear instincts came out and I was like, oh, that's great. I love that. They came out and I was like, well, screw this. We'll do something ourselves, I guess. And it grew from, being at the time I wanted to have like a wholesome game style showcase, like the digital showcases, like what we're doing now. But I started Women Led Games in February. I had about like a couple weeks to turn something around for the March event that was supposed to happen. And I was like, I'm not doing a showcase this year. Like that's not happening, obviously. But because I had a lot of connections as a community manager and like, when you're a community manager for indies, you're also doing marketing and influencer outreach and, content creation, all that stuff.
Everything.
Everything. You do all the things.
Yeah.
I just created a website and I reached out to a bunch of influencers, and any of the women that were going to show off games during that event, I reached out to them. I was like, hey, I'll share these keys with these influencers. Let's just make a weekend out of it. And it went really well. It was really well received. People were very, grateful to have something. And then from then on, I just spent the rest of that year pitching to a bunch of studios and things like that to get some funding, some sponsorship to create the March event that we had this year. And that was amazing. We had a 3-day event. We actually worked with Wings to bring back their Steam event to make sure, wouldn't be gone this year as well, because the STEAM events are really, really important.
Yeah.
And we also work to highlight, content creators, women content creators, not just developers, because when you're an indie dev, which most women in the industry, if they own a studio, it's going to be indie. That marketing is really important, but you don't always have that funding for marketing. So those content creators are a big lifeline for your studio. So wanted to highlight those women that really help the industry through their content. And so we had a content creator day as well. And it was really, really fun. And I think I'm rambling from your initial question.
No, this has been insightful. I'm also a community manager for an indie team, and this is everything you're saying is relatable. I don't. So
yeah,
thank you.
You know the pain.
Oh yeah, the long days, and also being chronically online.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I wish I wasn't, but I am. Yeah.
So, what unique challenges? Because what I'm noticing is you took something that was negative and you flipped it around to amplify the positive aspects of it, which I think is really admirable. So there are opportunities that you're presenting. What challenges have you faced, or do women also face with women-led games?
The lack of visibility and funding, ironically, which is the whole reason the showcase exists, is to get these women in front of investors and publishers that normally it's a lot harder for us to get in the room than it is for men. I think the numbers last year for investment across like all businesses, like 2% of that investment funding went to women-owned businesses last year.
2%.
Barely. It's very, 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 very small. And so when you look at that through the games industry's perspective as well, it's like, okay, like how small of the investment was in the games industry for women. So, especially now with all the layoffs and all the fun stuff happening. So our biggest mission and our biggest like problems are kind of the same thing, right? Like we're trying to get that visibility and trying to get that funding to continue to provide this visibility. And, it's been going really, really well so far, despite the industry, but I see it like getting a lot harder, especially with, there's a lot of weird stuff going on right now with DEI and stuff, like people getting nervous about it. And like, because of all the insanity going on with this Gamergate 2.0 nonsense. And so, the biggest thing is going to be visibility and just the opportunities, which is another reason Women-Led Games has worked with GamesBeat twice this year. We worked with them back in May to get women in the room at their GamesBeat Summit in front of investors. And it went from, I think, they had maybe 10 to 15% of the participants, the people showing up were women. And then after our partnership, it was pretty much split 50-50 this year between men and women. And then, so we're working again with them this October. In a couple of weeks, there will be GamesBeat next. So hopefully we'll see, another, pretty even rate of men and women in the room with investors for GamesBeat next. That would be really great. But those are the two things. We'll say visibility and funding, mostly the funding aspect, especially now.
What do you think is I understand that visibility matters because visibility creates like an implied safety. Do you think the lack of visibility is what's keeping women from pursuing game development roles or leadership roles in the gaming industry?
I think absolutely. Like when you don't see that representation out there for yourself, and like it kind of like if you've already got that imposter syndrome doubt, which most women do, like they have it much higher than men typically, and you don't see yourself represented in that industry or that line of work, it's a lot harder for you to have the confidence to even want to approach something like that. I remember being a kid in high school and having, game developers come in and talk about, their studios and like how great game development was. And I did not see one woman up there talking to me and telling me about it. And so even though I loved games since I was a kid and I was like, oh, I'd love to do that, I was kind of sitting there with like, but can I do that? Like, I don't see any other women, like, it's really, it kind of crushes your spirit at the start before you even get there, when you don't have that representation and that visibility. So that's another big thing, is like women-led games wants to make the industry as a whole like a better place for women coming into it, for them to understand like this is something you can do. There needs to be a higher retention rate of women, because we tend to drop out of the industry a lot sooner than men. There needs to be more women in leadership, so that we can, tell the younger generations coming in, like, yes, these roles you can do this, you can do these things. And that's, a big thing with women-led games as well, is why we also support women-owned studios. Is, we want to show women like they can do this, like they can be successful doing this, and this is how you do it. It's in a pretty little showcase package with like a cute little character.
I think people take for granted that seeing yourself mirrored in a space where you want to be lets you know not only can you aspire to be that, but it's like it clicks in your head that this may be safe for me to do so, because not all violence is physical violence. Some things eat away at you emotionally in ways that you can't recover from. And I think this really contributed to a lot of the mass exodus we see for women just leaving the industry. So just seeing someone in a positive place, seeing someone in a role that you aspire to be, says, okay, this may be a little bit safe for me to even get there. So it's really important to have spaces like yours that amplify those voices and amplify those people who are in leadership and in game dev.
Yeah, absolutely. Game development is terrifying as it is, right? Like, especially because most of us game developers, when we get into it, it's not for money, right? You see all these indie developers, it's a very passionate thing. It's, you see it all the time. I left my job and worked on this game for 3 years and it's finally out. And, you see those stories all the time. And, it's a lot scarier. The risks out there for women to do something like that it's a lot riskier for women, because we're typically the ones, if you have a family, which you and I do, we are typically the ones holding down the fort on top of everything else we're doing, right? Like we'll have the help and support financially from our spouses, hopefully most of the time.
Right.
But aside from that, like child rearing, taking care of the home, and like it's historically been expected to fall on women.
Right.
And when you don't have that equal partnership and you're doing all these things, and then you want to say, hey, I want to do this startup of game development, and there's like a huge risk of it not succeeding, especially add on top of it that you're a woman. So like even getting funding in the first place, like it's very, very risky. So that's sounding like very, very bleak and like depressing. I'm sorry. But like it's the reality. So when you see, like, you look into the industry and you don't see other women in the industry that are successful, or like you don't have mentors in the industry that can like, bring you in and be like, look, I know it looks hard. I know it is hard, but this is how I did it. I want to help you get there too. Like, it makes it a lot harder for women to enter. And I don't think that's fair at all.
No, it's not. And a little bit goes such a long way. I was struggling, and someone said, I'd love to spend more time with you to mentor you through this.
Yeah.
And that instantly just I felt a weight lift off of my shoulders.
Absolutely.
Because especially being in a field that's mostly male dominated, when you're overwhelmed and then you're also telling everyone, okay, going AFK because I'm taking my kids to the dentist, you feel really isolated and alone in these spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. I love it when I meet other moms too in the space, because like they get it. Like they're not just, because it doesn't typically fall on the man when he's working from home. It's like, oh, the kids have to go, they have an appointment or something, they got to go to daycare, they they have to be picked up from daycare midday in the middle of the workday,
right, in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
And they're like, but it's sprint 33, and I'm like, I know.
Okay, mom, go get them.
Right.
And you're like, so like when I meet other moms in the industry, it's like, oh god, thank you, you understand.
Yes. And I'm doing it by myself, so it's a little bit, it can get heavy. I'm grateful for where I am, but it is heavy.
It is. Yeah. I admire you, and I'm also here for that support if you need it, if you want to vent. So
Thank you. I appreciate that. So something we have in common is a background of community management. We talked about the Gamergate too. We talked about all these negative things that really happen in our online community. How do you build and maintain a positive and engaged community?
God, that's like a whole other talk on its own. That's like a whole like community managers summit. You guys need to pay your community managers more, by the way. Everybody across the industry.
Especially if they're doing more than community if they're doing everything.
Their whole marketing suite,
Yes.
Gosh, it comes down to cultivating, and I'm going to use my little tagline here, self-promotion, creating the spaces you want to see, right? Like you want this certain safe space for women, then you need to have these hard boundaries of what is and isn't acceptable. And thankfully, we have not had a lot of lashback from, trolls or anything yet. But I think that's because we're still a little bit on the smaller side that they haven't noticed us yet. But yeah, I would say just most of it, there's just zero tolerance for BS in my community right now. And it very, very much centered around like lifting each other up. We're not like climbing up the ladder and like taking the ladder with us type of a thing. Like that's not like we're all in this together. Everybody needs to like rise up together or we're all just gonna fall type of a thing. So that's kind of where our community is and what it stands for. And we have just pretty low tolerance for anything else.
What would you say is the biggest challenge you faced as a community manager?
Oh my gosh. I would say just the juggling, because it's an indie space. All my experience is in indie, so I would say just the juggling of everything, because indie is rough. I have thankfully most of my games have been like on the cozy side, so like a lot of the communities have been like really, really sweet and understanding, and like they know it's indie, so like they're even more understanding. But like I've heard so many scary stories about like CM in the AAA space and things like that, and like communities like once they get really, really large and they get like really fanatic about their games, it gets really scary. And I'm like, oh, I think I'll stay away from that for now. But yeah, I think it's mostly just the juggling of all the tasks when you're indie, because you're not just doing CM, you're doing marketing and you're doing content outreach and you're doing content creation, and you're kind of like, okay, this is a lot.
And in some cases, you're also UXR. It's it's everything.
It's everything.
For those of you listening who don't know, that's the user experience side of it, and trying to get feedback from people who are playing what you have.
Yeah, doing QA, doing a little bit of production too, which I see a lot of people who are her community managers in indie. Actually, that's how I got into production. I shifted into production because of all the things I had to handle. Kind of gave me the skills to like, okay, take everything that I've learned, make it more internal to the team. And because I feel like production is kind of like the same as community management, but it's more internal, like towards your team instead of.
You're right.
Yeah. And that's kind of how I fell into that. I was like, oh, this is just like community management. It's for my team. I gotta take care of my devs a little more.
Yeah. So you are very busy. You wear many hats. One of those hats is angel investing. So how does that create first of all, what is angel investing, and how does that create a more diverse and inclusive gaming industry?
So angel investing, so for PlayCap specifically that I am a part of, and I joined PlayCap purely to learn at this moment because I'm still a very, very much a beginner in investment. But I saw that there's this opportunity for the first ever, angel investment group that is completely women. Like all the investors are women, and they invest in all sorts of projects. And it's the first, angel investment group that is all women, that is for the gaming industry specifically. And I was like, yeah, I want in on that. Like, I want to, I want to learn with other women how to invest in things, in games, and projects I believe in. So yeah, let's.
It's like that meme where the guy's like slamming his card down on the table.
Yeah, it's like here, take it.
Yes.
But like angel investing is so like we're pre-seed and seed round. So I think it's between 20K and 150K for studios that are just starting out, they kind of need that initial funding. They may or may not have a vertical slice already, which we're seeing a lot of startups coming from, studios where people have been laid off from AAA and things like that, coming to us and pitching to us, which is really, really cool to see. Really unfortunate about the layoffs, but it's cool to see something, growing out of it. But yeah, it's, you're investing some money into this studio and hoping to see it get off the ground so it can continue to build its funding and, continue to grow and launch its game. And hopefully you'll see a return from it. But at the heart of it, it's really just, trying to invest in games that you believe in. And I really like that I've met so many amazing women already that have like decades of experience on me in the industry. And I'm like, oh, this is great. Teach me your ways, please. How are you still here?
Yes. I'm always blown away where someone's like, I've been in this industry for 20 years. I'm like, tell me more. I want to know.
Tell me everything.
Yes, tell me everything.
Let me absorb your wisdom, please.
Yes. Let's have a sit down. I need to know.
I love it. It's amazing. I'm just like, because and it's funny because you go down the street and you see a lot of men who are like, oh yeah, I've been here since, gaming started in 1922 or what, I don't know, being silly.
Yeah.
But you don't see it as often with women. So when you meet another woman who's like, I've been in here for 25 years. You're like, no, wait, how?
Right? And you have 5 fingers and 10 toes? Is that?
Yeah, you survived. Tell me your war stories, please.
Yes. Yeah, it's true.
I've only been in the industry 4 years, and I've already got some PTSD. Yes. I'm like, how do you cope?
Oh, that is true. Or when it is true that when a man tells me that he's been there for 20 years, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Must be nice.
Yeah, must.
You have good security.
No, I'm gonna change that. That's not nice. That's not nice.
It's great. It's impressive, but it's also not uncommon.
Yeah. It's true. So do you have? There's a lot of noise. Do you have? I think your actions show this, but I do want to hear you articulate it. Do you have hope for the future of women in gaming right now?
My hope is that we will get to a point where we are not needed.
Right.
Where these organizations aren't needed anymore, where it's just we don't have to sit out here and battle this and continue to raise our voices and for basic things that anybody of the opposite sex would get. I don't want to have to sit here 30 years from now and be talking about the same things. I have a 4-year-old daughter who, if she's anything like me and ends up falling in love with games as well, if she comes into the industry 15 years from now, I don't want it to be the same as it is right now.
Right.
For her, I could not look at her confidently right now and say, yeah, join the games industry. It's great, and I don't want that. I don't want that for her in the future, and I don't want that for anybody else in the future. So, if we could just, I don't anticipate, the gaming industry being, not needing us in 10 or 15 years, but to need us much less would be really great.
Yeah.
If I could lower, my rate of how much I have to tell people that we're needed by 80% by 10 to 15 years from now, that'd be great. I would love that.
Also, if we didn't feel this change was possible, we would not be doing this. We wouldn't be banging our heads against the wall and shouting from the rooftops to make these changes.
Yeah, I mean it's possible. It's just we paving the way, creating that space and then not giving it up. And I think we're starting to get there. I think it's moved a lot. It's improved a lot in the past couple of years. And I think with the showcase, it will really, really help amplify that. And hopefully, I want to see more. I want to see more women-led studios. I want to see more just independent studios led by women, just going and paving the way and having these blockbuster indie amazing hits and be look at me. And I want to see I want to see young girls who are coding right now and coming into the industry and coming in confident and saying, I have this amazing concept that I'm creating and and get that funding and be able to create it without as many headaches as they do now. And I think it's getting there. Once the overall industry calms down after, the layoffs and things.
I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I do have one final question. Where can people learn more about women-led games, PlayCap, Angel Invest, and any other projects?
So you can find us, Women-Led Games on Twitter. We're just at Women-Led Games, all one word. And then, womenledgames.com is our website. And then PlayCap is actually playcap.gg. And we are accepting pitches right now. We are funding more into studios and not projects specifically, but you can pitch both. And there's a form right on the website, just playcap.gg. Just fill it out, and we all just kind of get together and go through the pitches, and then email people back like, hey, come present this and talk to us. And yeah, it's been really cool so far. I'm excited to see where it goes in the projects we invest in.
Me too. So thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I am TaSh. Let's connect on LinkedIn. And to say hello, no, Women in Games International, please visit us at getwigi.com. Subscribe to our newsletter. And you can find us on every social media platform at GetWiggy. Take care, and we will chat soon.